So, we have to thank lots of stakeholders who will be unnamed, who inspired us to go big, and we hope that we've honored kind of their inspiration by going big. So, pun intended, fast tracking the future of downtown Mountain View. Could transit-oriented development be the catalyst? And so what was that bold idea? Okay. So what if downtown Mountain View had a robust, thriving transit anchor to kind of anchor growth? Imagine what a difference it could make to create kind of this flywheel for downtown prosperity, where downtown becomes a more desirable place to live, attracts economic investment to build and improve downtown, and creates more spaces for people to live, work, and live, and then attracts more businesses to actively serve people downtown. How would that align with the strategic priorities that Mountain View organized 4 years ago? Whoops, I'll go back. So it turns out this is not a new idea. This was started in 2017. So what's going on, right? Why hasn't it moved forward? So with this question, we formed our group to try to unpack this and figure out kind of how could we get this project going. So what we bring, we'll go back. So what we bring are 4 different perspectives. Elise is unable to meet us tonight. But what we have collectively is over 50 years of living in downtown Mountain View, real estate development experience, policy and legislation, user experience, and technology. So with that, we're going to bring you through the journey over the last couple of months of what we did and what we learned, a potential way forward, and reflections and next steps in the spirit of dialogue and community building, because we can get this done collectively.
Yeah, okay. All right, hello everybody. My name is Ricardo Jenez, and this is kind of what we did over summer vacation. And then, to add to that, this is the connect and community part of it. So one of the things we did was to try and identify stakeholders that we could talk to about this project. And, we found 11 people. And I will say one thing about folks in Mountain View. Everybody has an opinion, and sometimes a strong opinion. And, so we got these stakeholders together. They're from a variety of different areas, so community development. We got folks from the city. We basically had a lot of people who were focused on advocacy and housing and so on. And we also got stakeholders that worked with the city prior. So that was really important for us to actually get the true picture of what's happening. Along with that, we did a lot of online research. So the city has a lot of different plans. I don't know how many people have gone to, you have? No? Okay, you should go to the Mountain View site, because basically we just have huge number of plans. There's a transit center master plan we talked about before. There's an evolving Moffett Boulevard plan. And we kind of drew from this that there's some best practices that we need to end up focusing on for our project. And that's really around transit hubs, sort of how parking is done, and how to really put together private and public funding for projects. So 5 interesting areas. We found that city staff were stretched thin, and that kind of affected a lot of sort of the knock-on development that was happening in Mountain View. The approval processes were somewhat lengthy, and when we talked to people who wanted to do work in Mountain View, one of the things that they felt was the city felt that it was somehow safe, that they weren't going to push forward a lot. And so that was, a little interesting for us. And we looked at other cities around the area, whether or not it's Redwood City, or we looked at Sunnyvale and so on. And they were actually pushing forward with a lot of very innovative programs and actually building out the city, we think, at a much faster rate than we were able to do. So that was kind of an interesting insight. And then we sort of found out the transit center seemed to be a natural linchpin. So why wasn't that happening? So, and how could we end up advancing it? So next slide, please. And then I'm going to hand over to Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm going to talk about a potential way forward to help the funding and cost obstacle that we have with the transit center. Next slide. This is a map of downtown Mountain View. And as you can see from here, there's over 35 acres of underdeveloped or undeveloped land that sits within a 5-minute walk of transit. Next slide. So the question is, why isn't this land being used right now? It could be used for housing. It could be used for office space, public space, all sorts of good things. And the conclusion that we've come to from talking to stakeholders is there's low carrying costs for these landowners, and there's not much incentive to act. So the parcels sit idle. Next slide. But because we have a little bit of background in real estate and we've done some research into some funding approaches, we know that there's a way to incentivize landowners to participate in downtown growth, create an incentive to act so that the parcels hopefully are well utilized. Next slide. And that is with something called transferable development rights, or TDRs. Next slide. So what it is it's an opportunity for landowners who have the ability to build up legally. They're entitled to do it, but they don't need to for their business. They can have an opportunity to make some money and unlock some huge value that's unlocked away right now. Next slide. So what will happen in a TDR is a city will decide which parcels are eligible for building up where they want density, where it's needed. And then, next slide, a developer owner can come in and start the process of developing that area that where high density is needed. And the way they do that is they get the development rights from the landowner, and in exchange they lease it for money. So now, next slide. So the landowner now is getting some funds, and so they could stay in business or improve. Or if they really don't want to, now they have more of an incentive to sell their property, which now is more valuable. And then for the developers, now they get to develop higher where it's needed most. And so that also benefits everyone who's living, working, and visiting downtown. Next slide. Okay, so how much value could downtown TDRs unlock? Next slide. 140 million. Next slide. And more, because we just looked at downtown. We haven't looked beyond, but there could be even more. Plus, there's additional revenue that the city could get from this through property taxes and parking, possibly 2.7 million per year. Next slide. Keep going. Yep. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Joseph, and he's going to talk about our reflections and next steps.
So as I mentioned, we conceived of this project not just for the semester, but that it would live on, and community-based effort, right? Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have very different backgrounds, the four of us, but we are all able to contribute in different ways, and the more the community participates, the stronger this idea will grow. Next slide. Okay, so our suggestion, recommendation is to keep talking to stakeholders, and they would include Caltrain, who controls 3 acres of land on Evelyn, the landowners who have underutilized assets, developers, the community, and Mountain View, which holds the bulk of those unused air rights on their parking lots. Other ideas to really speed things up is to expedite and try to move process. Time is money. And so the ability to move quicker and be more nimbler in the process will help accelerate investment in the community. And lastly, starting an advocacy group. A lot of these projects, like Diridon Station, started with the Good Neighbor Committee, and eventually kind of, collected enough community support, and then it went to government. And so that is our vision for this project. Next slide, please. And so I want to end with probably one of the strongest quotes from the semester. We've had lots of great quotes, and it's really, if you want to go kind of fast, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. So please, I encourage you to sign up. We're collecting a list, and let's do it together.